Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react.
Well, I've said it, I think at least half a dozen times. My wish list for future guests includes this guy, Gabe Adams, and he's joined us today. So, Gabe, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, man. We've been looking forward to this for sure. Gabe, I've been intrigued by your journey ever since I saw you on Maury Povich. The TV in the break room at work, I would guess it, year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And of course, the whole time I'm on my lunch break, I'm just like staring at the screen like, what is this kid doing? How can he do that? You're dancing around doing your thing. So can you share a little bit of your story? Like, A, why were you on Maury? And B, why would somebody like me stare at you for 5 minutes as you do your dance routine?
Well, Maury contacted me right after I graduated high school, and they reached out to me over Twitter, and I had never heard of what the Maury Povich show was called or anything.
Yeah.
I told my youngest sister, and she's like, "No way! I watch that show all the time in bed, all the time. It's so funny. You have to do it." And I was like, "But I'm not the father." And then she's like, "I know, but it will just be like super duper like over dramatized, and it'll be way funny." And I was like, "Okay." So then I went back to the producers, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it, but can I get like a little more information on like what the show's going to be about?" And they're like, "Actually, we want to do something a little different than You're Not the Father, and kind of do a segment about bullying. And so we're going to bring in at least 5 other people who have a disability, and they're going to share about their bullying experiences. And then we also want to highlight what their talent is and what makes them different than everybody else and stuff like that." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, now I actually might be interested." So I ended up doing it, and it was a very, very interesting thing to be a part of. Meeting the other people who had other disabilities and seeing how they were able to go through their lives and their bullying experiences motivated me even more. And there was this one guy that was born without hands, and he just had fingers on his shoulders. And when he first got there, he kind of just was moping about everything. And he was there with his mom and his brother and his grandma. And I got on stage to do a rehearsal. Then I got done with the performance, and they came up and they started talking to me. And she's like, "My son hasn't gotten off his phone this entire time of being here, but he finally put his phone down to watch you." And I think it really opened up his eyes to realize what he can do without what he doesn't have, and move forward in his life and be confident in who he is and what he's doing and stuff like that. And it's like, holy cow, that's awesome. So that alone really made the trip and the show worth it.
So that was after his reaction was to your dance routine, right?
Uh-huh.
And so what do you do when you dance? Like, I don't know how long ago that was. Can you describe to and you know what? Our listeners can see videos of you dancing. There's tons of them, and they've got tons of views too on YouTube. What was it like for that kid seeing you dance for the first time?
He just said, "I'm always in my phone because I don't want to ever look up and have people be staring at me and looking at what's missing instead of what's there. And so my phone's my safety net to go into. But after watching you dance and seeing that you don't care how people look at you, you just go out on that stage and you do you and you have fun with doing it," motivated me to want to do something different. And so maybe I actually might go home from this and try out for the soccer team and stuff like that I've been holding out on because I didn't want to be stared at differently.
That's huge. I mean, that to an extent, that's what portion of life is all about, right? Helping people realize their own potential and encouraging them in their journey. I love that.
Of course.
Gabe, for our listeners who aren't familiar with you and maybe haven't searched you yet on YouTube, can you tell us a bit of your background? What are you up against in life, and what does today look like for you?
So I was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, without arms or legs, and my adoptive mom was pregnant going through a checkout store when she was 9 months pregnant with her 11th. And the cashier asked her what number she was on. And my mom hates that question because she gets asked it all the time. And so she's like, it's my 11th. And the lady was like, no way, that's super awesome. I was like, yeah. And then the cashier continued the conversation. She's like, you know what? I know a family that's adopting their 15th child, but there's also a boy that was born without arms or legs that is also coming on that plane that does not have a family. And my mom was like, I'd take it in a second, not even thinking about the logistics of it or anything like that. And then she went home, and I grew up in a Mormon-Christian home. And then she brought it up with my dad. And at the time, my dad was a seminary institute teacher for the church. And he was like, Janelle, no, we already have 11 children already. I don't think we can handle one that has no arms and legs and the bills that would come with it and everything. And so they didn't end up talking to each other for like a good week because she wanted to get me and he didn't. And so in the Mormon church, it's really big to have personal revelations through the Spirit. And so my dad went to the LDS temple one day after work, and he had a revelation of seeing my brother that was in my mom's womb at the time and me becoming best friends throughout life. And we were doing everything and hanging out with each other. So when he came home, he told my mom, we need to adopt this little boy. And so then months went by and they started working on it. And they didn't tell anybody about it. And then the American Airlines called out of nowhere saying that they would give them or me a free flight around the world to bring us together as a family and all this other stuff. And things just started falling into place one after another. And I soon became Ron and Janelle. But my birth mom, the reason why I have no arms and legs is because she took an abortion drug over the counter because it was really big in Brazil at the time to be able to do that. And she was already too far into the pregnancy, so all it did was stop the arms and legs from growing, and it ended up giving me a syndrome called HanHart Syndrome.
I saw you on an interview, and you said that HanHart affects 1 in 1 million people. So you are literally 1 in a million. How does that make you feel? I mean, I think we see disability as a problem. And
of course,
part of me realizes that you don't see it that way all the time. And so being 1 in a million, does that speak to something about how you see yourself?
Yes. There was a time on Instagram a few weeks ago, this lady reached out to me and she said, how do you navigate the dating world with having a disability? I'm having no luck. And I said, how about you try taking the word dis off of ability? And that should be your starter. Because when I started dating, I was constantly getting turned down because of my physical body. And all the people that I was trying to go for were just not interested and weren't having an open mind or an open heart to say that there's so much more than me than just the missing limbs part. And so for me growing up, it was really, really hard to find someone that actually liked me for me and was committed to getting to know me beyond the physical aspect of who I am as a person. And to be able to say that I'm 1 in a million is pretty awesome. I did meet another person who actually has the same syndrome, and he is a bodybuilder without arms or legs, and he is really big on social media. He's met Dwayne Johnson, and he works with Tony Robbins and Ed Mallett and all these other big speakers, but he's an awesome guy. doing awesome things. And it was really cool to find somebody else who also has HanHart Syndrome.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Wow. So, Gabe, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was how you've come to where you're at today. I remember one video where you talked about, as your parents were raising you, there were times where you were kind of upset with them or mad at them because they wouldn't do everything for you. You know, they sort of pushed you to do it yourself. And, on the inside, you're like, but I don't have arms. And now you're talking about today where you are, like you just mentioned, you're navigating the dating world. I can see on your social media that it seems that you have found somebody that you really enjoy hanging out with right now. And overall life is positive and your outlook is also positive. So how did you kind of come to a point where you weren't so mad anymore or disappointed, but more of all right, let's figure it out?
Growing up, it was really, really hard to learn and gain my own independence because I grew up in a family of 14 and being the only adopted, and just always being around people who had arms and legs that were always doing stuff for themselves. Always made me confused in my head why they were able to do something and I wasn't. And it never really clicked with me for a fat minute that it was just because I was 100% different than them physically. And so I'd always sit at the bottom of the stairs and try and get somebody to carry me up the stairs. And my mom would be like, no, you need to learn how to go up and down the stairs yourself. You need to learn how to do your own writing in class. You need to learn how to do all these things because it's going to make you independent. And it didn't click in my head until I was a 7th grader and I went to junior high. And I saw that none of these people were getting babied. None of these people had their mom there to hold their hand or to tell them what they needed to do or anything like that. And so after getting looked at as just a boy in a wheelchair for several months in 7th grade, it started to tick me off that nobody wanted to hang out with me because they thought that I couldn't do anything. Because they always thought that if they hung out with me, then the electric wheelchair had to come as well. And that there was going to be too much planning. There was going to be so many things that we wouldn't be able to do because of the wheelchair. And so I ended up trying out for the talent show. And that was when I was able to gain even more of an eye-opening experience for myself, that I could push myself physically, mentally, and emotionally to do hard things that I didn't even think I could possibly do. And then after that, the sky wasn't even the limit. It was farther than the sky that I wanted to reach to. So then I worked my butt off in becoming independent, not just with going up and down the stairs, learning how to rock myself up in case I'd fallen down, and stuff like that. But it was more or less of the personal independence of going to the bathroom all on my own, getting myself dressed, getting myself in and out of the shower, and all this other stuff. And I was just able to walk as a model in New York Fashion Week for this company called Runway of Dreams. And I was sitting backstage getting ready to do the rehearsal of the run, and they were playing Just the Way You Are by Bruno Mars. And I was just sitting there thinking in my head, holy cow, I am 21 years old, and I am about to walk the New York Fashion Week runway here in New York City, all on my own. I've traveled here on my own. And then I started thinking about all the hard things that I've had to overcome physically and mentally to get to where I was in that very moment. And I started to cry behind stage because I was so inspired and impressed by myself. And there's not very many times that I give myself a pat on the back, because for me, this is how I grew up. I wasn't robbed of my independence by suddenly getting placed in a wheelchair or becoming blind or becoming deaf or anything like that. I have lived my entire life without arms and legs. So for me to sit there and always give myself a pat on the back for doing something is very rare. And so for this moment to happen for me just was so emotionally awesome and breathtaking to realize that I have come so far in the last 20 years. And I've done so much in my 20 years that a lot of people my age have never done or would never do.
That's amazing. Yeah, it sounds like your mom was the catalyst, but once you started accomplishing things, you wanted more and more of that, right? You
Exactly.
started gaining confidence with some of the little things, and then, like you said, the sky was the limit, or even further. And I think that's how it works a lot, right? There's something that pushes us to accomplish, and then we realize, you know what, maybe we could do this on our own, and we don't need that push anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think my mom deserves one of the biggest shout outs ever, because she was the one that had to face lots of people as I was growing up that would say, you're so mean to him. You're so hard on him. Why are you so tough on him? Blah, blah, blah. He has no arms and legs. Just give it to him easy. And she had to be the one that said, no, I know that he is made for bigger and better things. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought him into my family, because I know that what I'm doing is going to make him better and stronger for his future. And now, speaking presently of today, anytime that I go over to my parents' house, because I no longer live with them, they're constantly asking if there's anything that they can help me with, because they're just not used to me not being in their home anymore. And I'm like, no, I got it. And everyone's like, why are you so independent now? Now I just want you to not.
Let me help you.
And I'm like, no, you can't go back on what you said.
You're doing it wrong.
She's like, it'll only take me like 2 seconds, where it's going to take you 5 minutes. And I was like, yeah, it won't be the best 5 minutes ever.
That's funny. What incredible, I'm not a parent, so maybe to some extent it's somewhat natural, but what an incredible foresight for your mom to put up with so much, probably a lot of negativity in her life for 12, 13, 16 years, all for the sake of her believing that her little boy can do so much more than what a lot of people think is ever possible. So exactly. I appreciate that you gave her a shout out. I can only imagine that she deserves so much more than even a shout out. That's
of course.
Yeah. And the thing that is amazing to me about that is that it was like a feeling or an idea or what, your mom like instilled this in you. It wasn't something she physically did. It was her pushing her own emotions and relating an idea to you that improved your life. I think that's a really amazing concept, and something that we can all learn from and use from in any of the relationships in our lives.
Of course.
So, Gabe, one of the questions we wanted to ask you is something you talked about. It wasn't until middle school that you realized, none of these people have their mothers hanging out with them all day. What do you, and like I said, growing up, this has been your whole life. You've never known what it's like to have arms and legs. What do you think most people, the average quote unquote person in the world today takes for granted?
I think it would just be their independence, freedom to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, and stuff like that. There's lots of times I'll be out in public just doing grocery shopping or just shopping in general, and I have people come up to me in tears, and they've just been watching me from afar, doing my everyday thing, and they just start sobbing and saying, I've been watching you for the last 3 minutes, and I just realized how much I take for granted, just trying to watch you get that hanger off the shelf or get your Tide Pods off the shelf or whatever it may be. And you didn't give up and you ended up getting it, and it just made me realize how much I take for granted in just the small amounts of my day. and it makes me want to go home and tell my kids how much more they could do that they're not doing and stuff like that. But a lot of people sometimes forget that, or are surprised when I say it's not always an independent struggle that I face anymore. It's more or less a mental and emotional struggle that I'm always dealing with in my head. I went to Vegas for my first time my senior year, and for me, I still get super insecure and weirded out when I'm out in public for long periods of time and all eyes are on me. And we went to Vegas, and we were there from 10 in the morning till 2 o'clock at night. And I was just mentally and emotionally drained by 11 o'clock at night. And I just went completely silent. And then we got back into the car, and my family turned to me and they said, "Are you okay?" Because I wanted to go to Vegas. I was the one that paid for my family to go and everything, because we had never been. And so they were all shocked that I was completely silent and everything and had zero emotion. And so they all turned to me once we got in the car, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's just a lot to be out in public for that long and have that many eyes on you constantly and people pointing and whispering and everything like that." And you'd think that after 18 years that I'd be used to it, but I'm not. And so then it's really funny when my job is motivational speaking and I'm constantly getting in front of crowds of 5,000, 10,000 people. And I can do that with no problem. And my family always jokes with me because whenever we go out to eat, I can never order my own food because I get too nervous. And I feel like I'm going to waste the person's time that's asking me for my food, or I'm going to mess up on my order and something like that. So my mom always says, "You can speak in front of 10,000 people, but you can't speak to one person on the one thing that you want." Yeah. I'm like, "No, I really can't right now. It just gives me anxiety." Yeah.
How, obviously there's so much in life. You're adopted. You were born out of the country. You are one of a million kids, 14 children. You're raised in our church. You don't have arms. You don't, all this stuff. How have you and your family wrestled with, or even just addressed or dealt with the issues that might come with you being gay? And if you don't want to talk about it, we can cut that question out.
I think it's a huge thing to talk about, especially right now in today's society and church and everything like that. But growing up, I did grow up in a Mormon home, and my dad was a figure for the church to teach the youth every single day, Monday through Friday, the teachings of the church and everything like that. And my mom was a Sunday school teacher at church and everything like that. And so for me to say that I was gay was a huge, big, fat no-no. And I had tried to come out to them at a really young age, and they had told me no. And I knew that I was gay at a really, really young age. I was in second grade when it really clicked. And everybody's like, "How do you know in the second grade?" But I just knew that I didn't like girls, and I was always hanging out with girls, and I wanted to do more of the girly things with the girls. And I did have a few crushes on boys in my class and stuff like that. And so I tried again in the 7th grade, and my parents told me no. And it started to become this conflict where anytime that I had mentioned being gay, it turned into this big, huge crossfire between me and my parents, and it started to drive a wedge between us. And I tried again right before I graduated high school, and they told me no. And there was a time that my dad had said, "Nobody will ever want to hear from a gay person." And he was also working as my manager at the time, too. And he had told me if I were to come out, he wouldn't work with me anymore. And as a 16-year-old at the time, it terrified me to lose that respect and love from my dad if I were to be myself. And so one day I had already graduated high school and everything. I was in church, and in the church at my age at the time, when you turn 18 years old, you go and you serve an LDS mission. And I just knew that I was not going to do that because I felt like if I did that, I'd be spitting in God's face because I knew that I was gay and I knew that it didn't align with the church and I wasn't going to BS the system and everything like that just to serve a mission and just to serve a social title in the church and everything and make everybody think that I'm holier than thou when I knew in my heart that I wasn't. And so I would go to church and I would only go to sacrament instead of the 2 other classes because I felt if I went to the 2 other classes, they're either going to talk about how marriage is between a man and a woman, or they're going to want to encourage me to go to the Young Single Adults Ward, where I'm going to find a future wife, so to speak, or I will go on a mission. And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time and do any of that. So I'll go to sacrament, I'll hear other people's testimonies, try and grow spiritually from that and stuff like that. And so one day I was getting ready to leave after sacrament, and my mom was standing by the doors talking to a neighbor at the time. And I started to go out the door, and she whispered in my ear, and she said, "Did you pray about this before you leave?" And it made me furious that she would say that to me, because I had just graduated LDS seminary and everything like that, and I'm probably the 3rd child in my family that's ever graduated LDS seminary. And so I was like, you've got to be kidding me. She did not just ask me that. And so I went home and I typed up this text and I sent it to her. And I just said in the text, I do not feel like we're friends. I don't feel like I can be in a room with you. I haven't for years. I feel like I'm living a double life where I have to sneak out on dates, and if something wrong goes bad on a date, I can't tell you guys because you guys will just lecture me about being gay. I'm going to move out in the next year, and I just want you both to know that there will be no relationship after that if we can't find a way to get past me being gay and you guys get on board with learning how to love and accept me for who I am, because that's how you raised me, was to follow my heart and be who I am. But the second I do that, you guys frown upon it, and I'm not okay with that. And she came home from church, and she read the text, and she started crying, and then she went up to her room, and I didn't see her for the rest of the day. And then the next morning she came into my room, and I could tell that she had been up all night crying about it. And she came into my room, and she sat down, and she said, "Gabe, I want to tell you that I love you and that I am beyond sorry for being so dense and making your life a living hell. For so many years, I thought that I was doing what I thought was best and what I thought would make you happy. But after reading that text and seeing how much anger and sadness you have towards your dad and I for what we've done and how we've made you feel over the last few years is not what I ever intended. And it breaks my heart because I love you so much, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate who you're becoming. And I want you to know that if you do decide to date a guy, I want to meet him. If you do decide to marry a man, I want to be there at your wedding. If you decide to have a family with a man, I want to be the grandmother of your children. Please do not shut me out. I will learn to become better and do better to you and everything." And that was huge because so many years it was a battle, and it was a fight, and it was a lecture, and it was shameful to be who I was. So to have her say that was huge. And then 10 minutes later, my dad came into my room, and he pretty much said the same thing as her. And for my dad to say that, who just raised 9 other boys, and then to have a gay son, was huge to hear him say that he would still love me. And he said, I won't go to your wedding because I believe that it's okay, but I'll go to your wedding because I love you and I want to do what's best for you. And that was huge. And my relationship over the last year with my parents has been one of the best relationships it's ever been. And I feel like I can tell them about my dates. And I actually just barely started bringing around the guy that I'm dating to family events and everything like that, and everybody loves him. And a year ago, I would have never been able to do what I'm doing now. And I was able to come out with confidence to the public because all the time people would comment, he's gay, blah, blah, blah. Why doesn't he just come out? But it's because I wanted to have my parents' approval first before I came out publicly.
I think that really speaks to the power of self-conviction, of like really looking inside and be like, you know, this is something that I really feel strongly about. And it's clear that, you know, you respect your parents so much, but it's also clear that you have a lot of self-respect. And I think both those things are obviously really important, right? And
of course.
And the fact that you were comfortable enough with yourself to bring that up to your parents, I think they could respect that. And then the conversation starts from a place of mutual respect. I really, really like how you took control of that situation.
And to go along with anything with the church, I have no hard feelings with the church. I still have a testimony. I don't really attend church as much because I don't want to bring up any questions onto why I'm there and offend anybody. But I do still have a testimony. I still believe in God because I know without him, I would not be here. I would not have the family that I have. I would not have the job that I have, the lifestyle that I have, or anything without the help of him. And I feel like to deny that would just be a huge spit in God's face as well. But there are just some things that I don't agree with the church, and I think that's totally fine. But I am not here to bash it or anything like that. I still respect them. But as far as my worthiness in the church, I don't think it aligns with the church, sadly. But I will still and always pray when I need help and stuff like that. And I still have spiritual conversations with my parents and stuff like that because I still believe that I'm not going to go and practice the LDS faith anymore because I just don't want to do that to myself or other people.
So Gabe, you have unpacked so much today, and I'm so grateful that again, that you're just sharing openly and authentically. I am,
of course,
curious. So, I follow you on, well, I know Twitter. I don't know about Instagram. I don't even know. Maybe all of them. But one of the things that has kept me following your journey is your infectious smile. And your bigger than life positive attitude. And I think a lot of our listeners would enjoy following your journey as well. Can you tell us where people can find you, or maybe learn a little bit more, or even just retweet your stuff? Like, where can we find you?
Yeah. So you can find me on Google just by searching Gabe Adams, and that will come up with articles, videos, YouTube videos. I started my own YouTube channel a few years back. I haven't posted as much as I thought I would, but in that YouTube channel, there's videos on how I shave my face. There's videos on how I get myself dressed, and it's all PG, so you can share it with your family and your kids and everything like that. And there's also a video on how I get in and out of the shower, and that's also PG. I try and make everything not only adult-friendly, but also kid-friendly because I know that there's going to be kids after me.
That's amazing. Gabe, one final question. What is your advice to others who are facing seemingly insurmountable challenges?
I think one of the biggest things to remember, and it's what I tell myself all the time, is that there is always somebody in this world who is going through it 10 times worse than you or I. And try and live each day for that person. You may not know why you're living for that person, but there's always going to be somebody who has it 10 times worse. And you can be that one light in the world that brights up a room when there's so much darkness in this world going on. And just remember that people are always watching from afar, whether you think it or not, because how you live your life is how other people are going to want to try and live their life. for either the better or the worse and try and make it for the better.
That's amazing, Gabe. Your perspective is so touching and life-giving.
Well, Gabe, it's been amazing to have you. And like I said, I know it's kind of a joke, but seriously, you have carried this conversation. You don't need a moderator or somebody to interview you. You have an incredible outlook and an encouraging and very inspiring story. And not only just an inspiring story, but an inspiring perspective on life and how you tackle what you're up against. I so appreciate your candidness today. Thank you for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me and letting me share. It's been awesome.
What an awesome person. We both have been following Gabe Adams for quite a while, Sean, and I'm just so excited that we got to connect with him today. It was so great.
It was a lot of fun and a breeze of an interview. Like, I loved how he just goes and he makes really good points and shares really positive outlook. So I really enjoyed the interview. So thank you, Gabe, for being a part of the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
All right, we are going to move on to thank you notes. We think it's really important to express gratitude, and Sean and I have been doing that every episode at the end here. And so my thank you note is to a boy named Gavin, and I have become friends with Gavin over the past, 10 years or so. But he's a teenager. He lives in Florida, and he recently said that his talent is positivity, and I think that's super cool. So here's my thank you note. Gavin, thank you for your constant positivity. You amaze me with your ability to approach every day and everyone you meet with a clean slate and a big smile. You are wise beyond your years, and you make everyone around you a better person. I am grateful for you, my friend.
Nice. Mine goes out to a mutual friend of ours, Leighton. Leighton and I have been friends for a little over 20 years, and my note is to him. Thank you for your consistent friendship for more than 20 years. You are a solid person no matter what you or your friends are up against. You always show up and offer help one way or another. I'm grateful for your friendship. That's it.
Beautiful.
Accurate, brief, concise, right? The ABCs of communication.
I like it, yeah. Let's add gratitude.
A, B, C, and G. So. All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in today, for listening to this episode. Again, you've got to go check out some Gabe Adams video. Like he mentioned, he sometimes go to encouraging and inspiring videos to uplift his spirits. I would say that some of those videos online are his. So if you're looking for a little pick-me-up, if you will, I would encourage you to search out Gabe Adams. So with that, thanks for tuning in today, and until next time, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Find us online at twodisableddudes.com and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our friend and audio producer, Jake Tompkins.